Welcome to course number 2 for the KidsSafe seminar training. This course is on abuse. What is child abuse? Remember, when we think about child abuse, the child is anyone under the age of 18. Here's a definition that we use. Any serious, non-accidental physical or mental injury, sexual exploitation, or serious physical neglect of a child under 18 years of age. We're not just talking about sexual abuse, but there's more to it as well. Physical or mental injury, and also neglect can be considered child abuse. When we think about who does the abusing, sometimes we have a person in mind. Maybe there's stereotypes of who is the abuser, maybe an older man. But the truth is, both men and women, young and old, familiar and unfamiliar, relatives and strangers to the victim have been convicted of child abuse. It's not just older men. But it can be anyone. And there's statistics that talk about how about 60% of perpetrators of sexual abuse are known to the child, but not necessarily family members. So maybe an example would be family friends or babysitters, child care providers, neighbors. About 30% of perpetrators are family members, and only about 10% of the perpetrators are strangers to the child. So unfortunately, most cases that are reported child abuse and convicted are from people that have a relationship with the child. So this is something that we can keep in mind as we want to be above reproach in the way that we minister and help, but also help children in the healing process of abusing. So, who gets abused? Both boys and girls. Children in public and private areas, all age groups, infants through adolescents. So in the space, it can be a private space or a public space, both boys and girls. So we're talking about who does the abusing, could be anyone. Who gets abused, unfortunately, could be anyone. So what does abuse look like? This is helpful for us so that we can identify when there's abuse taking place so we can get the children the help that they might need. So 4 different kind of categories to think through. Not just physical abuse and not just sexual abuse, but physical abuse could be considered hitting, biting, shaking, kicking, emotional abuse, verbal attacks, threats, and humiliation. Sexual abuse, inappropriate touch or pictures, obscene language, and indecent exposure. And I also want to talk about this last category of neglect. Many times we don't think of this being child abuse, but anything that could be failing to give attention, failing to give the physical needs, failing to offer guidance and supervision. So the lack of providing for the child's need is also a part of child abuse under neglect. These are 4 categories: physical, emotional, neglect, and sexual abuse. All are considered child abuse. Now remember, there's a fine line between fun and making a child uncomfortable. So be careful how you talk and interact with other volunteers while in the company of minors as well. Sometimes we might be talking about something that could be inappropriate to a child, and so we need to be careful with the words that we say or the pranks that we have on pulling on people or talking about dating scenarios or inappropriate movies, and so all those types of examples. So we need to make sure that when we're talking about good behavior and bad behavior, we reject the behavior and not the child. When we're ministering to children and there's something that's going on that we need to stop and come in and prevent, we are rejecting the behavior, but not the child. So here's some examples of good touches and bad touches, because in ministry it's important that we show love and care for the children, but also we are protecting ourselves and protecting the children. So some examples of good touches: non-demanding, gentle, and aware of child's boundaries and special needs. Shoulders, hands, arms, head, side hug on the back. So pats on the head, pats on the back. We're going to also talk about age-appropriate touches, high fives, or gentle pats on the back. Bad touches: kissing a child, demanding or initiating hugs, sitting a child center on the lap without other adults present and or in the dark, allowing children to use inappropriate language, please, for the sake of child KidsSafe and child abuse, we don't want any piggyback rides because someone could get hurt, horseplay or tickling, touching in the genital regions, upper legs, buttocks, or chest. Sexually suggestive comments, so it's not just our touches but also our words to or about a child. Ridiculing or rejecting a child, being careful with our language, how we talk to someone. And then lastly, invading privacy, especially in the bathroom. So when we think about ministering to children, we might be in a preschool classroom and there might be a 3-year-old that comes and wants to sit down on your lap. We make sure that we always have at least more than one adult in a classroom at all times. Sometimes an adult needs to take some children to the bathroom, and that is okay as well. So in that kind of scenario, we know, okay, a little child who wants to come sit in front of you on the floor, that's appropriate. But when it comes to youth ministry, when there's a 14-year-old person that wants to come and sit down on your lap, that's inappropriate, and that wouldn't be helpful. So we want to make sure that age-appropriate touching is okay. One rule of thumb that I like to kind of go by is we don't want to necessarily initiate touches. So yes, okay, giving us a high five, totally appropriate, but we don't want to initiate hugs. And if there's children that you see that for some reason they are always coming to you and wanting to initiate hugs, there's also a way that we can be wise in the way that we go about responding to those things and not always giving them exactly what they want from us, because that could be getting us into a line that's uncomfortable for other children, for adults, and putting yourself in a place that is not helpful for you and could be compromising. So we want to make sure that if there's children that are always initiating some kind of touch that's kind of on the boundary, like saying they're always coming and wanting to give you hugs, there's a way of going about it by giving a side hug or just kind of giving something in response, like a high five or a handshake instead. So we need to be careful in the way that we present ourselves, how we show love to children, how we speak respectfully to them. So this is one way that we can do that. So if you have any questions, please let me know. You can email me at jmclack@riverstone.church. When we talk about good touches and bad touches, we talk about child abuse. Could be anyone could be the abuser, and anyone could be abused. So those are important things to consider in the way that we do ministry. Later on in the training, in course number 4, we will talk about specific ways that we can minister to children in different kinds of classroom settings, different age of children. So when we talk about preschoolers and we're going to the bathroom, we'll talk about those procedures in course number 4. And we'll talk about the differences between ministering to children, ministering to teens. So you have concluded. This is course number 2, talking about abuse. Course number 3 is on the mandatory reporting.